Oh, and welcome tonight to Sanctuary Online. And hold on, folks, I have a surprise for you. Happy New Year!
Yay.
Woo-hoo!
Yay!
That's a nice one.
Oh, it's been an interesting one, right? I think, Kristen, you were the first one to say that you were not impressed with your 7-day trial, right? And you were ready
Very
to go
unimpressed. Return that.
returning 2021. So I chose this slide for us tonight because it has wonderful things on it like health and success and friendship and peace, all things we can still aspire toward, right? And if any of the folks on this call have a hand in it, I know we're headed in that direction right now. So anyway, really thank you for the last Tuesday night off. It was the first night that we actually intentionally took off since we began Sanctuary Online. So thank you for the little breather from those of us behind the scenes. And tonight, most of you have been with us before. I think everyone probably has. Ellen, and we already talked through this. So keep your faces on if you can. We love to see you. And tonight we'll be putting you in gallery view. Not a lot of slides tonight, so a nice time to look at each other's faces and enjoy each other. And if we do not yet have your email address, snail mail address, and phone number, go ahead and pop that into the chat and we'll grab that, especially your phone number, and Barb can send you out a little text feature on Tuesday afternoons reminding you that it is Tuesday night. Kristen already said her last week was just didn't know what to do with herself on Tuesday. So I think, but I did like, Barb, you did send out a text saying we're not coming tonight. So
Yes.
come tonight, which I appreciated. Oh, and my friends, we've been getting so much great feedback from our Advent series. And so we just wanted to love on those people again tonight on the call. Obviously, Kim and her daughters, and then Stedney. Thank you, Stedney and Hannah. And then Edie and kids, Zoe and Zach and Jane Ann were part of our folks who offered us really a beautiful candlelight lighting ceremony. So we want to appreciate you all. And we had some amazing vocalists as well and great teachings from Ken. So a lot of great feedback. And we just want to thank everybody one more time. And again, the next night was, if anything can be even better, our Kwanzaa teaching. We had 7 fabulous community leaders speak to us, one on each of the principles of Kwanzaa. And if you missed that night, I really do encourage you to go into our Sanctuary Online YouTube channel and take a look at that. We're in the process right now of editing our website. These were so good. And many of them gave us in video, the little teaching pieces that were about 5 minutes a piece, that we're going to go ahead and load up that page onto our Sanctuary website as well. So you can go on and really just a really, really wonderful night. And looking to the future, we have a lineup for you this month. Our author conversation, I don't want to spoil things, but I do want to welcome Ellen Reed to our community. And Ellen, we're so excited to have a gorgeous conversation with you tonight about your book and the concepts in your book and how that has changed your life, right? Writing that book and changing people's lives through it. Then also, we are going to do an overview in 2 weeks of creating a life that matters. Many of us are very close to this curriculum. We've seen it before. We've attended it. We've taught it. You know, we have even master facilitators on this call. We had to realize other folks have never heard of it before and don't know what it's about. So we're going to do an overview of creating a life that matters on January 19th. And then we're going to kind of point toward a series that we'll do in Lent in March, like our Advent series was. So 4 nights, and we're going to take apart the middle course of this 3-course curriculum. It's called Rediscovering Relationship with Myself. And we're going to cut this into 4 gorgeous pieces and kind of do CLM light each night. Walk folks through Lent. It's a really neat time to do this kind of work. It's real self-reflective. And then also point toward putting a team together to build out the entirety of Creating a Life That Matters and put it online either later this year or in 2022. So big initiative undertaking for Sanctuary to do that. And we'll start in a week. So that makes me nervous. And then you all chose the paying guest. That, do I have that right?
Yes. Yes, you do.
I do have that right. So you guys have 2 more weeks to finish this book. I was thinking you had only a week. So you're in great
No.
shape. Oh, you're in great shape. Okay. Then a teaser. Everyone loved Ken's teaching on religion and the great religions so much that we're bringing him back for more. So we're giving him January to rest. And then we're bringing him back with a part 1 and part 2, how the great religions began and what the great religions believe. We're looking for a guest speaker here. And here's your book for February. Can't Wait to Get to Heaven by Fannie Flagg. And you all voted on that in November. So
Okay.
just a reminder.
That seems like so long ago.
I know, it was like yesterday, you know, like everything. The news cycle is quite shorted, isn't it, Jane Ann? And then March, here's your teaser, CLM. The courses that we chose were one called Brilliant, Gorgeous, Fabulous, which talks about our multidimensional selves. The second course is Powerful Beyond Measure. It talks about the 4 yogas and how those intersect and shape our lives. March 16th is a course called Under the Waterline. I'll leave it there for mystery. And again, one of the most appreciated courses that we do out of entirety of 17 is Keeping Body and Soul Together. It's on the intersection of sexuality and spirituality. And looking forward to that. And then what we're going to do for March, unless you can miss us otherwise, Edie, is the March book conversation is going to be from one of the sources from within CLM. We always pull author pieces, poetry pieces, musical pieces to support each session. And so we're taking a look at one of those, and we'll probably pull it, one of the cool sources from CLM. So it ties March kind of all together. Sound good?
Good.
You gonna keep coming?
Yep.
We are working ahead for you, okay? So invite a friend, always. And here we go. Dun, 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 dun. I am over this slide. I have looked at it for 8 weeks, Cheryl. Get this book club done, okay?
Working on it. They got to finish reading it first.
Okay, finish your reading, my friends. Oh, Ellen, we are so blessed. I know this conversation started weeks and weeks ago to bring you here and have you this conversation with you tonight. But because we had so much already booked in, thank you for your patience. And I'm going to put myself on mute and let you and Barb just have at it for the night. As always, friends, if you have a question about Barb and Ellen about their conversation or a comment, go ahead and put that in the chat room. We've switched duties tonight. Barb's going to be the host, and Cheryl and I will staff the chat box. And if there's a great question or something like that, please put it in there. Cheryl or I will scrape it up, and we'll do one of those amazing polite signs. And then Barb and Ellen will know to grab us, and we'll do as we always do. We'll just have you directly unmute yourself and engage with Ellen. And then we are just going to watch it occur. Okay, so dial in, Barb and Ellen. It is all yours.
Thanks,
Sounds
Joby.
Great. Welcome,
Everyone,
Jen.
I'd like to start by just kind of introducing you a little bit to the amazing Ellen Reed. Ellen specializes in psychobehavioral aspects of adults. She served as a clinical nurse specialist for over 40 years, including 10 years as a psychiatric consultation liaison nurse for Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Ellen created a private practice using grief and loss, nursing, and Gestalt theory as a foundation, where she encouraged clients to address issues by honoring their past while owning their present. Ellen holds a baccalaureate degree in nursing from New York University. And for those of you who walk through life according to 3-letter acronyms, TLAs, New York University is also known as NYU. She has a master's in psychobehavioral nursing and an MBA in health services. Professionally, Ellen has worked as an advanced practice nurse, a clinical nurse specialist, an adjunct faculty member at Rutgers College of Nursing, a psychiatric consultant, healthcare administrator, and a project manager charged with oversight of electronic documentation in US National Clinical Services databases. So they say no job is ever done until the paperwork is done. So Ellen's been working on that. She's worked extensively with those facing loss, grief, and trauma in their lives. And recently, join me in congratulating Ellen as her alma mater, NYU, recognized her accomplishments by naming her as the recipient of the 2020 Rory Myers Distinguished Alumni Award, where she was recognized for innovation and the advancement of nursing.
Wow, I didn't know
Ellen
that.
says,
That's amazing.
yeah,
I'm really doing congratulations here. Congratulations, Ellen.
Thank you very much.
yes.
What an honor.
Ellen says about herself, I'm a firm believer that there are no coincidences. My book has launched at a time when the world has paused to come inside for protection from a virus that many are attempting to understand. Let this be a time that you remember as welcoming growth in your understanding of self and your ability to master even the worst situations. Let this be a time to become introspective long enough to evaluate what you need and the world needs without malice or fear. On a personal basis, Ellen is a wife, mother, a healthcare advocate, an activist, and author. Ellen, welcome to Sanctuary Online. We are delighted that you're joining us for this conversation this evening.
Thank you all so much. What a pleasure to be here. I'm honored. And thank you for being present and allowing me to speak to you tonight. I have to thank
Great.
my sister, Carol, and Bonnie, who are just below me in my picture. I don't know if you see them.
We can see them. We see them every week. We're very lucky,
Okay.
Ellen. Yeah, they're very faithful.
Yep.
It was Carol who told
Yeah.
me about your group, and I'm just thrilled to be here.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you.
So, I'll ask you to jump in if there's anything that I missed or said wrong. You can correct me. And I'd also like to introduce your book a little bit. So,
Okay.
if there's anything just quickly about you yourself that we should know, or you're ready to jump in and talk about the book.
I was very interested when you and I talked the other day. You particularly asked me how I came about the title.
Yes.
And I think that's a good place. Begin at the beginning and move on, right? So
Sure, absolutely.
the title is by no means an accident. It was very intentional, as is true of most of what I've done in life. And it's someone to watch over you, finding your strength within. And by that, my sense and my whole practice has been that I'm a strong believer that people really have the wherewithal to find their resilience, build their resilience, and to heal themselves. Of course, many of us don't have the internal resources or the support to fully utilize all of those skills. So my book begins with the very first chapter is really building of self and helping an individual redefine who they are, what their engaging qualities are that they would choose to have, what they think they could make best use of, all in intent of building on relationships and experiences.
Great. So
What-
the someone to watch over you really is you. You are the person
Yes.
to watch over you.
Yes,
All right.
yes, exactly.
Very good.
I explained to Barb that, as I was a Gestalt therapist, I still am a Gestalt therapist, just not practicing very actively right now. But what I learned and what I proposed to others was that it was for the individuals that came in my practice came for a reason. They found me out of the whole world of therapists. And I never saw that as, innocent. I thought that was there was a reason for that. Why did they choose me? And I'm certain it was, the word was out that my very first session with individuals was, I'll never do more than half the work in this relationship. And should we get to a point where I start doing more than half, I think we need to look at whether I'm the right person for you.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Honesty.
Great. Yes. New concept.
Yeah.
Yes.
Important one. Yeah.
So Ellen, in your book, you start talking about the building of self, and then you move on and you talk about relationships, family. You talk about aspirations, love, grief, and resilience.
Yes.
So that's a pretty wide-ranging series of
Yes.
topics in the book. Yeah. And so tonight we have the hour tends to go by so quickly that we usually, we're going to focus it down, and focus just on a couple of areas first. We find ourselves at the beginning of the new year. Some of us already want to return it for false advertising. Right, Kristen? And during that, we often make New Year's resolutions. Many people do that, or some of us have one set of resolutions that we make every year. And the joke, of course, is you all make we'll make the resolutions, and by the end of January, they've all fallen by the wayside.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. So they may relate to our personal life, our professional life, our health, or our relationships. And so do you have any thoughts about why that is? Why do our New Year's resolutions fall by the wayside? Why do we seem to, break our resolutions, so early on?
So easily. Very often, the resolutions are unrealistic or unreasonable in terms of meeting the responsibility of the resolution. And that in our humanity, we find so many reasons not to work so hard. So there's a couple of things that I think take place. But, the whole premise that I do present out of the book is this is a working journal. It's been so hard for lots of my readers that they couldn't read it at one sitting. And I realized that was because it required them to look at themselves. And much like my book, resolutions require us to say, what is it about me that I find at fault that I need to change? What is this whole concept of change? How do I make a change if I don't even understand who I am?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
No.
good point.
What is it about me that doesn't work or didn't work? How do I measure that? Who measures that for me? Am I still looking for somebody else to define me? And one of the things I learned out of being a grief therapist was that so many people carry old loss with them. They don't even realize it half the time, that they're operating out of something or someone who left a message about them, or a phenomena in the relationship that they never resolved. And they keep reinventing that same wheel, or going back to relationships that aren't going to work because they haven't resolved the loss to begin with. And why don't we resolve loss? Well, from the time you're very little, you're taught not to touch the hot stove. And the whole world of grieving means that you are needing to walk through a very painful experience and recall and remember and relive. And many of us don't want to do that or believe that doing that will bring so much pain that we can't tolerate. So what people do, and it doesn't matter what gender we are. I used to think men did this and not women, but I've since found it's a universal. People try to turn the page before the page is ready to be turned.
Wow.
They go on to something else. They look for something else to busy themselves so that they don't have to face what just happened.
They pull their hand back from the stove.
Yeah. Does that resound for anybody in this group?
Ellen, I'm not being host here, Barb. I'm just jumping in as a participant, but I hesitated tonight with revealing too much about March with the Creating Life That Matters curriculum. And yet everything that you're talking about, it feels like we touch on, it's during, and we often, Cheryl and I would often teach this in Toronto during the season of Lent, which again is when it's very reflective, right? And
Yes.
There's a session in CLM where folks are really asked to look back even further at the arc and the story, like you're saying, of their life.
Mhm.
And we always caution facilitators that people will often walk out that night and not come back. They don't finish. And honestly, I have walked, when you see someone leaving to go to the bathroom on that session, they're not coming back. And so strong facilitators know, okay, you watch the class, I'm going to get this person, because they've remembered something or they've triggered something. And the course is about healing, right? Like you just said, it's about walking through. I mean, and yet it's not running from that grief or that pain.
Yeah.
It's also not staying with it too long. It's, and we talk about allowing that pain or that grief or that life experience to be a teacher to us, right? To journey with. And gosh, I hope you come in March, and I'd love to learn from you. And we always learn so much, right? When they say the teacher always learns twice. But to see how when you ask the question, does this resonate? I'm on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at about a 14 right now. So thank you.
I was going to say the same thing. And I think the way I tend to say it is that, you get in that valley and you don't want to stay there. You want to go back up to a peak or get out of there. And what I try to tell my kids is that valley is so full of rich, dark, deep soil. So don't race out of there, learn what you need to learn before you leave, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm struck by the one point you said where, people still looking for someone else to define me. I mean, I just don't know. After, I've been in therapy for 42 years, and
as a therapist, hold on, Jane.
Yes.
Jane Ann is a therapist. Just many of us have been in the work in our own work for 42 years, but you actually do it.
We all have, but
Well, you might say that I have anyway been in and doing whatever, but just that the disappointment people still seem to have when they realize that they have to do the work. So it's not someone watching over me, it's someone watching over you. You are going to do it, right?
You are, yes.
I have people walk out just on that first session. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing the work. Like, you have to do this.
Yes.
But it's still, when you hear that, it's like, oh gosh, I wish there was a way of communicating it other than bluntly. But I'm pretty blunt, so that's how it comes across.
really.
Thank you for saying that, though.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a Gestalt therapist. I don't know if you've played with Gestalt therapy much, but my certifications are in Gestalt. And I witnessed the old films of Fritz Perls, who is the father of all Gestalt therapy, and enjoyed some of them where he'd sit with a big cigar in his mouth, and he'd invite his patients in and say, "Be that lamp. Now be the chair. Tell us what's going on in the room." And it's true, because unless you step outside of yourself at times,
Yeah.
it's really hard to look back in.
Mm.
Yeah.
The relationship between the patient and the therapist, if it's golden, is one where the person in therapy can trust enough to be able to see themselves and then heal themselves. I never healed a person in all my years. In fact, I'd start my day, and I told this to Barb the other day, every day I began my day in the same way. Dear Lord, please provide me the wisdom to say the right words, to be there for people who are in pain, who are suffering, who are dying, and to walk with them through those moments.
Mhm.
And for me, in doing so, it helped me from getting a big ego, for one thing,
Yes.
and it also enabled me to be truthful and honest, that I was only a vessel of a greater good.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah. You
The
know,
other-
Ellen, one of the things, one of the concepts that you talk about in the book is the idea of a problem versus a polarity.
Yes,
And, you know, it seems like you know, when we're trying to be introspective and look at, you know, what we're doing and maybe make some plans and do some things differently in our lives, seems like one of the ways we might get tangled up is by trying to manage a problem or solve a polarity instead of solving a problem or managing a polarity.
right.
Is that right? And how do we tell the difference and avoid that trap?
So there's a wonderful theorist by the name of Barry Johnson, who I did some work with a group way back when that utilized his polarity management theory. And he very simply says, you know, as you said, are you trying to solve a problem or manage a polarity? And what in the world you all must be saying to yourself, I hope, what is a polarity? So it's
Want me to show the
probably,
slide?
pardon me?
Do you want me to show your
Yeah,
slide?
why don't you go ahead and put
Sure,
the
that'd be
slide up,
wonderful.
Joe?
That'd be wonderful.
And I think it will still help even if you add words to the slide, Ellen.
Okay,
Yes.
sure.
So let me do that, and there we go.
The amazing fun part of
That's
this
not right, is it?
work, so polarities are interdependent pairs that support a common purpose in one another. They're energy systems in which we live and work. That's very formal. If you go on to the next slide, you might have a better grasp of what we're talking about. It gives an example. Polarities are all around us.
I don't think this is working. Hold on a second, Ellen. I want to make sure
Okay.
Cheryl, can you unmute and let me know if I have the right deck up and slide up? I'm a little blind here. Cheryl?
Yeah, I'm looking.
It's not looking right on my slide.
That looks right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
That was the
that looks right.
beginning.
that was the first one. Go to the next one now.
Yep. And then the
Yes.
next one, we took this slide apart a little bit and talked about this way?
Yes,
Ellen?
perfect,
That's it.
Perfect.
perfect. Is that big enough for everybody to see?
No, but I think if you speak to the concept, we can see like a top left
Yeah.
and bottom right and the purples
Okay.
and the,
I think the,
Yeah,
the major
print inside the
concept,
box. You can,
Oh.
yeah, I'm
the
sorry, the
major-
print inside the box isn't really going to be legible for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay. Well, I'll speak to it if that's okay.
yeah,
Great.
Most of us live an either or existence. I'm going to do this or this, and we've been, hindered by lists. Well, let me make list A and list B, and I'll choose from list A and list B. And Barry Johnson says, and the Gestalt people say, this world really is a both end world. It's not this or that. It's, what I learned to do in meeting with people of all sorts. They don't have to be my therapy clients. It's, they could be family members telling me a story, or in business. And I don't know if you can see my hands. Let's see. I learned to do cognitive shifts. So imagine this be a wheel. And I have perceptions about things, and you have perceptions about things, and we pretty much hold, onto those, unless we learn to be both end about the world. And then we start to say, well, that's what I believe, but I bet there's 10 other versions in
Yeah.
this room about what life could or should be. And so polarity thinking encourages us to do just that. On the left, you have either or problem solving behavior. And the reason why it gets kind of complex and could take a whole day conference to explain why the boxes are there and the helix and the lines, but I'll do my best to shorten it. On the top left are either or behaviors: identify final answers, enjoy a sense of accomplishment, move on to next opportunities and challenges. That's if you live in an either or world. You're very satisfied. Once you reach a decision, you move on.
Yeah.
In the top right, talks about both and polarity leveraging. What support do you get from living in a polarity world? You save time by identifying difficulties that cannot be solved. So by that, let me give you a very simple example. If you were on your way to work and a rock hit your windshield, you have a problem. You have a dent in your windshield and it's going to expand and break your whole windshield. It's an easy one. It's a problem to solve, and you're going to go to at the nearest juncture that you can, and you'll have it fixed. But if you have a situation like you'll see in the third slide, where you're in a work environment where people honor individuality, and some people insist on the whole team operating at once, that's a polarity. There's no right and wrong answer to it. There's opportunities to grow within a polarity that you may not have an easy fix, like we talked before about learning through your grief. There's no final solution to the issues that could be solved. May not be a good sense of accomplishment. And you may feel somewhat stuck and wanting to move on, but there's something to be learned within that polarity. And in the long run, you save time. Instead of wasting time trying to solve a problem that's not solvable, you begin to come comfortable with process. And isn't life a bowl of cherries and full of process.
Right. Process is always, you know, that darn process piece.
Yes, process, process, process. So
Right.
the next slide will be more, well, maybe more clear. It will enlighten you a little bit more if you can.
The next slide scares me.
Okay. Here. So the whole of the work when you're mapping polarities, if you avoid looking at the action steps and early warnings for just a minute, look at the very top. It says, excuse me, thriving workplace.
Yes.
That's a goal. And then the red at the very bottom is dysfunctional workplace. And what we're always choosing to reach for is the thriving workplace. And there are some times when people are very task oriented and some people are very relational or relationship oriented. God bless. So thank you, Barbara. In the top left box, people focus on the work at hand. These are task-oriented people. People get their own job done, and they do it well. And we're good at identifying conflicts that may arise. In the relationship top box, people care about each other. That's the first premise. People help each other get the job done. We trust each other through conflicts that arise. So maybe Sally in the corner is not going to be the big winner, but the group might be the big winner. The whole of the workplace might win. In polarity thinking, we're always trying to stay on the upside if we can. On the bottom left side, there's people pay little attention to each other when they're in a task environment. So there's a risk. If I'm me, I'm not going to be paying attention to the great job you're doing next to me. People are left to get their work done on their own without support from others. And people steer clear of working through difficult issues. They tend to fly through them. In the relationship world, there's discussion about how we treat people gets in the way of getting work done. People do a poor job of getting their own work done well, and we avoid identifying issues. So the writing on the outside of this paper are all, Barry Johnson speaks to steps to improve. So in the task-oriented box upper left, an action step would be establishing clear tasks, quality standards, and deadlines for completion. So if you're going to be that kind of a world, here are the action steps to take.
So Ellen, if I can jump in for just a second,
yeah.
I'm thinking about, you know, how to apply this kind of model in other ways, like maybe COVID ways.
Oh.
You know,
yeah. Yeah.
We have, if I'm following you here, there are analogies to both the tasks and relationships. There are tasks that we can do for ourselves to help ourselves manage in the COVID world. We can be very aware of, you know, washing our hands and wearing masks and taking steps that we can take. But also, you know, there are things that we can do to stay engaged. We can, you know, find a new Zoom call to attend.
Yes.
You know, we can do things like that to you know, to manage with within ourselves. And then on the relationship side, We don't have direct control over when a vaccine might be available. But we trust that there are others that are working on making vaccines and making them available and that. So am I kind of thinking that along the lines, thinking right on that?
Yes, there's
Okay.
like, to me, there's like a wealth of information that you could take to any issue or workplace or organization or family that this could be helpful.
That's where
When
I'm
you-
thinking, Ellen, you know, I think back right now, we kind of live in pods, most of us. And those pods, we might live with people. In our case, we live with people and we add one in and out. For others of you, maybe if you live alone, you might have a pod or a group that you feel safe with, you know, to socialize or, and I just wonder, because it sounds to me, what I'm really hearing that I think the world could use right now is, instead of being right or wrong, you know, either or. And there's a lot of that on the news today. And a lot of folks here are from Canada. So you're hearing both of those, that the both and expands my, my generosity, my compassion, and my own space of, I may not have it right, but you may not have it right 100% either, but we can be in a space of allowing both of our thoughts without having to be so binary in our
Exactly.
outcome or in our relationship. I just wonder how you would tie all the work you've done around thoughts, you know, that are just in our world right now like that.
So, you know, Barb's example of COVID was such a prominent one for me because my last 15 years of work was being a project manager. And I would be hired as a consultant to manage large projects in a variety of places, usually a healthcare system. And when COVID, it struck, and I started thinking, okay, what needs to be done before we have the vaccine to get all of the Excel spreadsheets, the communication plan, the marketing plan, who gets what, when, and where. All of that could have been done way ahead of time if there was some collaboration. And,
Yeah.
you know, instead of, you know, there was a lot of mixed messages sent out. It's the responsibility of the federal government. Oh, no, it's the state.
Right.
It's no, it's the, you know, so we went back and forth losing time.
Yeah.
When the vaccine arrived, we should have been out the door with people assigned with syringes at arms ready to give the vaccine.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I see a hand
And
up.
it seems like in the, in thinking about the polarity management piece, the other thing that kind of struck me is that there's ways that we can improve our tool set around doing that kind of thing. There's, you know, books that we can read, there's courses that we can take. You know, when we look at stuff like this, there's actually things that we can do to get better at those kinds of things. So
Yes,
that
instead
kinda
of
struck me
being
as well.
so insulated, in my ways, the only way. When I do
Yeah.
cognitive shifts, I learn so much about other people and other ways of doing the same thing. Kristen, are
Right.
you being
Yeah,
patient?
Raising your hand, so sweet.
I couldn't fit my thought into a chat there, but you know, we were talking, the slide started out, you know, sort of workplace based, and we started talking about COVID, and it just made me think of a decision I had to make in the last week. And I present this more of like a question of, am I grasping this correctly? But we, I manage operations for a life insurance company, which in part is a small mailroom. So while most of my staff are working remotely, I have 2 employees who have to go to the office every day. And there's 2 security staff, and there's a guy who prints checks, and they've made their own little bubble.
Yeah.
And they're working great together. But one of the guys has been counting down to retirement. And we interviewed and hired a contract employee that was meant to start last Monday and overlap to his retirement. And lo and behold, Sunday night, I get a text message. The potential new hire has COVID.
Oh,
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
So my problem that I was so focused on as a manager was like the task of, I need to get somebody in to start training to handle this surge of work before this person leaves, and the overlap and this and that, whatever. And I was like very singularly focused. And then being the new year, I was like, okay, look, he's not starting for at least a while. I'll talk to you guys in 2 days. I'm busy. And that 2 days turned out to be the best thing we did, because when I talked to the mailroom staff, they had a very different approach that caught me off guard, and I had to shift gears. And they started talking to me about how they felt about a third person coming into their space.
interesting.
And fine, they could wait 2 weeks for this guy, or we could interview new people. But they're like, no, you know what? Here's the situation locally. Here's the concerns we have. Here's the risks we have. And here's what we'd be willing to do to accommodate, to throw the entire plan out the window. And it was like, instead of going left or right, we'll go up. Like, it wasn't even,
Yes,
and I was
exactly.
trying to go left or right. And they're like, no, we'll go up. And I'm like, I didn't know that
You-
was a direction. And then
You were doing an either or.
yeah.
And
I was on an either or. And
yes,
it was when they started talking, I had to pause myself and be like, oh, wait, they don't actually even see the same problem I see. I see
Right.
how quickly can we start someone? Do I wait for him, or do I start someone else? And they saw this whole other realm that was like their lives, right? So we're in the workplace,
Safety.
but
Yeah.
I've got, 6 employees in a company of 150 who go to the office every day, and they had very different concerns they wanted to talk about. And once I listened to them, we actually redefined the whole problem
mhm.
and found a solution for it.
By
So
surprise.
very, very timely, I think, in thinking about it this way.
Great.
Kind of a reminder. I made myself crazy in either or for 2 days.
Yeah.
Yes,
I-
'cause
Great, thank you,
you were
Kristen.
tunnel visioned. And
Yeah.
had not let other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I guess you felt such pressure over being, the responsible leader.
Well,
That,
and in the end, they like me better for listening to their
Right.
feelings, and for accommodating what made them feel safe. Productivity's over
Absolutely.
here, but them being safe is going to get us a lot further.
yes,
Well, and I
It
was
was
just
It's a
looking-
really
great
yeah.
real world example. Yeah, thank you.
And I think if this
Wonderful.
was the same thing, I was feeling the same thing, Ellen. It's like, Kristen, you were task focused because that's your responsibility, and the people were just cogs in the task, right? They were FTE versus humans. And then I was just teaching this morning, and we had this conversation of safety was never, if you think about it, for most of us, the number one goal in a workplace.
right.
It wasn't. Production, function, I mean, so many other things were. And now it's like when you reshape, right? When we reform in a gestalt way, right? Of how it's all connected, this other value has come to the top, both in task, form, function, and in how people interact. So I'm loving this, Ellen, that how you stayed in the top, Kristen, you were still heading for a thriving, successful workplace. And they're like, yes, and our experience or our definition of that is very different from yours. Let's start and find that both and space.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Ellen. Thank
It
you. And
was-
Kristen, thank you for real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
I think I'm
Kristen.
trying to start there, but we'll see.
That was a good one. And
Yeah,
like I
was
said,
gonna-
they're all over the place. Cheryl?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, when you started talking about this, I remembered going through a Gestalt session, and when you talked about polarity, I thought, yeah, what this is a both and thing where he says, you know, what is the lamp saying? What is it? What? And you'd sit in a chair and you'd be interviewed as yourself. And then you'd take another chair and you'd be talking, and you wouldn't be interviewing. You'd be talking to, like, for instance, I'd be talking to my father or something. And then and then I'd sit in his chair and I'd talk as my father.
Exactly.
And it's a both and you just learn so much when you can see things from another perspective
Yeah.
like that, or from
Yes.
somebody else's idea or whatever. And you say, oh my gosh, why did I never think of that? You know, because you just weren't looking at it that way, you know?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I find interesting about that? I was thinking about a session where I did, which although I didn't know it was called Gestalt, that's what I did. And it was fascinating how quickly the words of the father just came to the person like it was yesterday. They didn't have to think it out. It was there and it just flooded out. It wasn't words that they would normally use. It was totally the other, which was great because it meant they were really letting it happen.
Sure.
It was quite a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
great.
I
So
did.
there's, you know,
Ellen or Barb, you have to decide.
I'm aware that that our hour is ticking by,
Oh my.
and I do want to touch on one more really important. Well, there's a lot of important concepts and things in the book, but particularly now, I mean, you know, Kristen, we've been joking about, you know, our trial period for 2021 is expired and we want to send it back, but really, what we want to you know, what that is connected to is the idea of resilience. We've been doing this for so long now,
Mhm.
and we've tried to be resilient. And you know, the cumulative effect of all of the stuff, I think, makes it harder and harder to keep our resilience front and center. And I know you talk about that in the book. You know, telling someone who is really, you know, trying to cope to just get on with it or suck it up isn't terribly helpful.
Correct.
So, you know, would you talk to us a little bit about resilience and, you know, any advice that you have for us for resilience,
Yes.
you know, in the times that we're living in?
As I'm experiencing the group and the gestalt of the group, excuse me, I will share my secret that Barb knows, Carol and Bonnie know. I actually am dying of cancer as we speak. I'm on my second attempt to fight off metastatic ovarian cancer. And Barb and I talked on Saturday, and I was a little worried if I would be out of my coma, my chemo coma today, but this has actually been very good for me. So resilience became very much not out there, but it became part of my life 2 years ago when I was first diagnosed. And I spent a good deal of time evaluating where that came for me and where I've seen it in other people. I was taught resilience as a child of pioneer ancestors who crossed the ocean in the bottom of a boat to get here. Some of whom were sent back because their sponsors never showed up at Ellis Island when they arrived.
Wow.
And they were sent all the way back to their country to start all over again. I didn't do that, but I inherited that.
Mm.
And I honor that's part of who I am. When my two little boys were little and I was a grief therapist, and I thought to myself, someday there's going to be a big loss in their life and I needed to prepare them for that big loss. And I would make a point of looking at little squirrels in the road and saying, oh my goodness, Christopher and Michael, look at that poor little squirrel got killed in the road. And we talk about, something that was not personal and upfront or had any warm feelings for them, but I felt like they needed to understand about life, that there's a beginning and an end, and in the middle, there's life, and that we will do our darndest to have a wonderful life in the middle. And that's what I do every day. I still teach resilience. I still remind people that for as long as there's a breath in us, whether there's COVID circling around our head, when there's illness or threat of Alzheimer's disease or death of somebody very precious to us, it's very important to capture what we do have and to hold tight and find meaning from the people that are in our lives. To love very strongly, to say all those things that we may have forgotten to say along the way.
Yeah.
I made a special point, and still just last week I reunited with a friend of mine in New Jersey to only find that she has cancer and is dying. And it is what it is, but we're talking.
Yeah.
And we're sharing. And I'm here tonight, hopefully offering you all something that you can take away that will add to your repertoire of life, that you will find meaning from it. And that was why I wrote my book, really. I wrote my book and self-published it because I knew I didn't have time to mess with any,
Yeah.
publishing company that was going to tell me, oh, that'll take 6 months to a year to decide. And I created a Paraclete Publications. It's the name of my
Love that.
Love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
For those of, thank you. So you all know what that means.
Absolutely.
And I have seen myself as a mentor, an advocate, somebody to walk beside people, to be there for them. And in turn, people have done that for me.
Wow.
That's great. What a wonderful, wonderful thought. Thank you for that.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you, Ellen.
So, Ellen, I really appreciate you kind of sharing from your heart and your about your personal situation as well. That makes it really real, and in a big hurry. So I'll ask if there's if anyone has any questions or thoughts for Ellen as we move toward the end of the conversation tonight.
Can we corporately pray for you?
Oh, please, yes. Thank you.
Can I pray
Sure.
for you?
Yes.
Jeanette, will you lead that?
Yes. Mhm. Father God, the Paraclete who comes alongside of all of us in our woundedness, who when we need comfort, when we need healing, we just lift up our sister Ellen, who's given so much selflessly. And Father, Lord, we just ask that you take her in your arms and surround her with love, healing, if that's your perfect will for her. Lord, that whatever's in her body would just be dissolved by love and by your Holy Spirit, who can, in fact, do what we absolutely cannot even think, ask, or imagine. But we ask it for her. We claim it for her. We declare it for her. And we just ask that you give her peace of heart. And thank you for her testimony in sharing these things with us, leaving us with such important things. And we just ask that you bless her and the time she has, and that you give her strength to keep going. In Jesus' name.
In Jesus'
Amen.
name. Amen.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for any others on the call who haven't talked about their personal situation, but who are facing something big like that, the loss, grief of losing a loved one, or struggling with a personal health issue or anything. Thank you for that prayer.
Yeah.
We claim that for any of the rest of us that are on there dealing with that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So Joby,
Mark,
can
you want me
we
to pop
get,
a couple slides here? Yeah, let me finish up.
yeah,
I'm feeling like this holy presence, and yet I do know we've got a couple things to share,
I know.
Ellen.
yeah,
Ellen, how do we get the book? We're asking the Holy
I'm
Spirit
coming.
to send us one.
I'm coming.
right. Yep. We thought somebody
Yes,
might
really.
want that. So
That's what it
Um,
looks like.
yeah,
Yeah.
the parts of the book that we didn't get to, these are just chapter titles. You can read through and see, there's all kinds of stuff about self-affirmation and aspiration, the I want to be somebody. We are family, understanding our place, our location with our family, and what that means for us and brings to us. On grieving, if you're grieving the loss of someone, and again, Ellen said this is this is not a novel that you sit down and read, and enjoy. This is, like her practice, this is a book where you have to do some work.
Yeah.
Mm,
Oh, great.
And there's
For
Hold on.
sure.
everything from inspiration in there and instruction to actual practical exercises and ways to actually enact and help you do some of the work that you'll need to do on this. So
Yeah.
that's the pieces of the book. Go ahead, Joe, to the next one. If you see yourself in any of these questions, if you're facing a problem or have a polarity, have you had any kind of experience with loss, or been presented with a life-changing diagnosis? Have you been dealing with the death of a family member, a friend, a pet, or a spouse? In a COVID-19 world, there's probably fewer. I know there are fewer of us every day that that say, no, I haven't dealt with any of those things. Or did you lose a job or an ideal or a dream for the future? So any of these things, the book can be helpful for you. And the way that you get it, drum roll, please, go ahead to the next one. Ellen has a website, www.ellenjreed.com. So Ellen, how do you get the book if somebody is interested in it?
It is available on Amazon and in both electronic and print. And there's a whole slew of other companies that have it electronically throughout the world now.
So good. I'm so glad.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Glenda, I see you
Excellent.
got your hand up there, Glenda. If you
Yeah,
could,
yeah,
come
yeah.
in.
Ellen, I would like to understand why you chose the cover.
The butterfly.
Oh, yes. There was, I'll try to do this quickly. I worked with a company called Elsevier. It's an old Dutch company that publishes major textbooks, Gray's Anatomy being one of them.
Wow.
And my role was standards of care and developing standards to place in electronic documentation. And in that company, I started working with a young lady who I just enjoyed. And this past year, when it was time for me to select the cover, I happened to fall upon her Facebook site, and she is also an artist. That is her butterfly.
Oh, wow.
And it's called Beautiful Soul. And she gifted that to me,
Oh, wow.
that beautiful artwork.
Yeah. So much, right? So much depth in the concept of the butterfly. I mean,
Mhm.
how many conversations
Right.
did we start there? So, wow, it's beautiful,
Yeah, that's
Ellen.
for sure.
Oh,
Excellent.
goodness. Well, it's one of those nights, and I'm so appreciative of you coming on. It's a night that I don't want to stop talking. And we also want to honor folks. We've got time zones all the way from the East Coast to California. So some folks are heading to bed and some folks are heading to dinner. And that's how we roll. But Ellen, just what a blessing you have been to us tonight. So what I just encourage, there's been too much silence in COVID and too much news. So if we unmute ourselves, my friends, and just do an honest to goodness.
Yay. Thank you so much, Ellen.
Hey,
Man, oh man.
Yes.
Let me get off here. You guys know next week we're going to be here again with a CLM overview. If you've ever thought of someone who maybe would be interested, I know many of you have heard of it, but maybe not understood it completely. So that'll be next week. And then obviously this book we have been waiting to talk about for 2 months. So Cheryl will host that end of the month. And then we start February up with part 1 and part 2 of Ken. So we have plenty here for you. We will be here for you. And we just ask you to keep on expanding the friends and family, right? Bring a friend. My goodness. Ellen, I just encourage you, please, now that you've come and been our presenter, please come as a participant whenever you feel, now that you know how to get to us, now to find us. Absolutely. We welcome you and we so appreciate you tonight. Sandra, you're
I'm waving at you. Yes.
waving at me. That works. Waves
I
work.
am. Yeah. Anyway, I was wondering about CLM. Are you
Yeah.
sending that out to churches?
Am I sending out next week?
Information to churches to tell them what you're doing so they can maybe choose to send someone, or
Yeah, and we're
I
actually
don't know where you stand on that. So I'll leave it with you. It's just a question I have.
we're going to go back into the entire, I mean, there are thousands of graduates, right, Sandra, and hundreds of churches that have taught
Yes.
this course. And
I
the
know a few
interesting
of them.
thing, yeah, you know a few of them.
I know a
The
few.
nice thing about this is we don't any longer have to have a organization to host. I mean, with
Right.
online. And so we're going to try and go back
Sure.
to, yeah, I mean, I have family members who live on little tiny farms way up in Northern Ontario that have been waiting their whole lives. Come teach us CLM. I'm like, no, it won't work that way. So it's going to be an experimental year, but yeah, we'll go through churches and we'll go through folks like, you know, crazy folks like Kristen and ask Jane Ann and other folks who have never had access to it
Right.
to come. Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. It's going to be an interesting reframe and redesign. Ellen, I would love your perspective on
Yeah.
what
Thank
we've
you.
done, because you know what, the interesting thing is you've made me think even tonight not to, you know, in Kristen, this whole concept of it's like this, it should be like this, you know, in a functional way is how I've been thinking about it. But tonight you're making me think of it in a holistic way. How
Mhm.
might we, even though it's really been a successful, gosh, 18 years, Cheryl, and 19 years on the planet, how might we open ourselves to making it the same and different, you know? Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, Sandra. It's we need a good chunk of brains and creativity and people who love the product and also
Yeah.
want to invite even more to come and experience. Just like Ellen, you know what it is? It's 18 conversations like tonight. It's guided conversations. And
Joe, am I hearing you
Good.
correctly that this is the first time you've done it online or sections of it online?
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we're just going to give a teaser taste.
Right.
And then hopefully enough people will say, yes, we're interested, and we will do the whole thing online either in the fall or if we can't get it together, you know, we want to do it really, really nicely, back to using Ellen word, very intentional about how we do what we do, how we put it together, and not just change the form, but yeah, recreate without breaking
Right.
something that's worked, right, Ellen? I mean,
Sandra,
Yep.
this is just a bit, right? This is just
Yeah.
kind of
Yes.
something for Lent, so it's not really the whole program. But yeah, we will probably go back to the churches and say, hey, here's an opportunity to do this. Even if you don't have enough people in your church, we can create small groups through this venue.
Right. And I was thinking about people that either missed doing it or would have been good to go, or people who did it before who might have some personal input about some of the changes.
we were going after folks who've been teaching it multiple times. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We'll have folks, smart folks who are in love with the concept, the product, and the journey, you know, the conversation.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was looking at mine the other day, actually. It's funny.
There you go. Stedney, I just want to, I'm got Stedney, interesting here. Stedney's giving us a resource in the chat. Managing Polarities in Congregations by Roy Oswald and Barry Johnson. Ellen, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it says, Stedney, you're on there. You're just, you're very slim in the dark, honey. Helped you facilitate conversations in your ministry and in your board meetings. God bless you. Yes.
Yeah, really.
Do you want to speak to that at all, Stedney?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, Barry Johnson, who Ellen referred to, did this resource for churches and in partnership with Roy Oswald. So the polarity maps are the same, but it does great work with structures and systems as opposed to ministry, you know, and so it's just a great book and a great resource.
Wow, thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Hey, Joe,
Yes, Ken?
Stedney, isn't this about the first anniversary of your pastorate in Louisville?
For my permanent position, yes.
Yes,
Very nice.
congratulations.
Thank
Stedney's
you.
been in Louisville for a year, permanent.
Nice.
Which is a long way from California.
It is.
Not only in miles, not only in miles, right, Stedney?
That's right.
Oh,
Ellen,
right. Go ahead.
Do
Someone
we-
else?
Before we wrap
think-
up, I just want to, you know, I just want to take a moment and say thank you, Ellen, for the great conversation. And thanks, Carol, for sharing your sister with us.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, my friends. I know these are getting longer and longer because we just won't hang up, right? I know, Kristen, what do you do? Eric, good to see you tonight. Catch you down there a little bit. Anyway,
Eric, did you
Yeah.
get your cookies?
I got the cookies.
Yeah.
I got the first box last Wednesday,
Well, perfect.
and then I got the second box on Saturday.